To observe without judgment means to experience life directly, without layering it with opinions, labels, or emotional reactions. When you feel pain, your instinct might be to immediately call it bad, to push it away, to wish it wasn't there. But pain in itself is just a sensation. It's the mind that adds the story, "This is too much. I can't handle this. This shouldn't be happening." The same applies to pleasure. You might feel something enjoyable, and immediately the mind jumps in, "I want more of this. I hope this doesn't end. I need this to feel okay." But both reactions, to pain and to pleasure, create suffering. They create attachment, resistance, or fear. The essence of learning to control your experience begins with learning to observe. That means watching sensations as they are, not as your mind defines them. When you feel pain, observe the sensation. Is it sharp or dull? Does it stay in one place or move? Does it change with your breath? The more you observe without judgment, the more you realize that the sensation is dynamic. It shifts, it evolves, and it rarely stays the same. In that moment of observation, you find space. You are no longer lost in the pain. You are watching it, and because of that, you are not being controlled by it. You begin to see clearly that the sensation is not you. You are the observer of the sensation. This realization is powerful. It turns you from a victim into a master. You understand that suffering comes not from the sensation itself, but from your relationship to it. The same is true with pleasure. When you enjoy something, a taste, a sound, a thought, observe it. See how quickly the mind wants to hold on to it. See how easily desire arises. Now notice what happens when the pleasure fades. Do you feel disappointment? Do you feel a craving for more? Again, suffering appears, not because the pleasure was bad, but because of attachment. Observation without judgment helps you break this cycle. You don't chase the pleasure, and you don't run from the pain. You simply remain centered, aware, and still. This is the power of awareness. When a martial artist trains, they learn to breathe through the discomfort. They learn to move through pain without panic. This is not because they enjoy the pain, but because they have practiced observing it. They know that the pain is not permanent. They know that the mind will try to make the moment feel bigger, more unbearable than it truly is. But through observation, they remain calm. They remain in control. The same practice applies off the training floor, in daily life, in relationships, in moments of stress and fear. When you observe without judgment, you keep your power. There's a Chinese saying, "The wise man walks through fire without burning because he knows it's not the fire that burns, it's the panic." When we resist pain, we suffer more. When we cling to pleasure, we suffer later. But when we observe, just observe, we become free. Free from the need to control what we cannot. Free from the illusions of permanence. Free from identification with every emotional wave. This freedom does not come quickly. It must be trained. Like a muscle, the power of observation grows with repetition and patience. In silence, in stillness, you practice watching the breath, the thoughts, the sensations. You watch not with coldness, but with clarity. You develop the inner eye, the unshaken awareness. You may ask, how do I start? Begin by sitting quietly each day, even for 5 minutes. Feel the breath. Notice the thoughts. Notice any discomfort in the body. Whatever arises, just observe. Do not label it. Do not try to change it. Just sit and watch. This is not weakness. This is deep strength. You are building your inner warrior. When the storms of life come, pain, loss, temptation, you will not be thrown around like a leaf in the wind. You will be like the mountain, grounded, steady, aware. The great masters were not without pain or desire. They simply did not let these forces dominate them. Through observation, they created space. And in that space, they chose their response. This is the real meaning of power. Not to control what happens to you, but to control how you meet it. So the next time you feel a strong emotion or a difficult sensation, don't rush to fix it or escape it. Pause. Breathe. Observe. This pause is where your power begins. And over time, with consistent practice, this power becomes your natural state. Sensation is not suffering. Pain is not your enemy. Pleasure is not your salvation. They are just guests. Let them come, let them go. Watch them with the dignity of a master. In this way, you will rise above reaction. You will move through life with peace and discipline. And most of all, you will live with clarity. The clarity that comes not from controlling everything outside, but from mastering everything within. To train the mind to respond instead of react is to fundamentally shift how you live and experience the world around you. Reaction is immediate, automatic, and often unconscious. It arises from habit, from conditioning, from fear or desire. Response, on the other hand, is conscious. It is deliberate. It is a result of awareness, not impulse. When someone speaks harshly to you, the reactive mind becomes defensive or angry. But the responsive mind pauses, observes, and then chooses the most balanced and wise course of action. This ability to respond rather than react is not something you are born with fully developed. It is something you train every day, in every moment. Training the mind is like taming a wild horse. At first, it resists. It bucks, it runs in every direction, and it does not listen. Your thoughts may race, your emotions may surge, and your attention may scatter. But with patience, with repetition, and with calmness, the mind begins to obey. It begins to settle. And once the mind is trained, it becomes the most powerful tool you have. It is through this training that you become free, not because the world changes, but because your relationship with it changes. You no longer get caught in every wave. You no longer feel enslaved by every emotion. You start to live with intention. Imagine a person walking barefoot on a rough path. If they react to every stone and thorn, they will stop every few steps in pain. But if they train themselves to stay focused, to step mindfully, they can cross even difficult terrain with strength. Life is much the same. Every challenge, every difficulty, every moment of pleasure or pain invites you to react. But the one who is trained pauses. The one who is trained sees clearly. The one who is trained chooses. One way to begin this training is to develop awareness of the breath. The breath is always with you. It is steady, calm, and honest. When you feel a strong emotion, anger, fear, desire, notice your breath. Has it become shallow? Is it fast? Without judgment, just return to slow and deep breathing. This simple act is already a step from reaction to response. The breath is the bridge between the mind and body. Controlling the breath helps you regulate the mind. And a regulated mind is a mind that responds with clarity. Another powerful way to train the mind is through reflection. At the end of each day, sit in stillness and reflect. Where did I react today? What triggered me? Where did I remain centered? This honest review helps you see your patterns. And once you see your patterns, you can start to change them. You begin to create a space between the stimulus and your behavior. In that space lies your freedom. In that space lies your power to choose a different path. Consider the example of a Shaolin monk. He is not without emotion. He is not without thought. But he has trained his mind through years of discipline. When he feels pain during training, he does not react by giving up. He responds by adjusting his posture, calming his breath, and continuing. When he is disrespected, he does not react with anger. He responds with silence or wisdom, depending on what is needed. His strength lies not in brute force, but in inner mastery. And this mastery is available to anyone who trains. Training the mind does not mean suppressing emotions. It does not mean becoming numb or indifferent. It means learning to feel fully and still remain centered. It means learning to be with discomfort and still act with integrity. Reaction comes from survival. Response comes from understanding. One is based on fear, the other on wisdom. Every day gives you the opportunity to practice. When someone cuts you off in traffic, do you honk and yell, or do you breathe and let it pass? When you are tired and frustrated, do you speak harshly, or do you take a pause before you say anything? These small choices shape your mind. These small choices are your training ground. Over time, the gap between reaction and response widens. You begin to see emotions as waves, rising, cresting, falling. You no longer need to act on every feeling. You become the observer, and from this place of observation, you can respond with clarity. You do not avoid responsibility. You do not run away, but you act from stillness, not from chaos. This brings peace. This brings power. The power of self-control is greater than the power of control over others. When the mind is trained, pleasure does not distract you and pain does not break you. You stay grounded in both. You enjoy life, but you are not attached. You endure hardship, but you are not defeated. This inner balance allows you to live with grace. It allows you to serve others, to make wise decisions, and to stay aligned with your values even in difficult times. The untrained mind is like a candle in the wind, flickering, unsteady, easily extinguished. The trained mind is like a steady flame, clear, bright, and unwavering. It does not mean you become perfect. It means you become aware. And awareness is the foundation of transformation. When you respond instead of react, you reclaim your power. You no longer give your energy to every passing thought or mood. You focus on what matters. You become intentional. You live with depth. Every moment is an opportunity to train. Begin now. When you feel triggered, pause. When you feel tempted, breathe. When you feel angry, step back. When you feel joy, appreciate it without clinging. These moments are your practice. They are your path. In time, the reactive patterns will fade and the space of response will grow. And in that space, you will find peace. Not the peace that comes from avoiding life, but the peace that comes from mastering it. Discipline transforms pain into power by changing how we interpret and engage with discomfort. When most people encounter pain, they immediately seek to escape it. Their instinct is to avoid, suppress, or complain. But discipline teaches the opposite. Discipline teaches that pain is not the end, but the beginning. Pain is not punishment, it is feedback. It is a signal that something is growing, stretching, breaking through limitations. Without discipline, pain becomes suffering. With discipline, pain becomes fuel. The body may ache, the mind may resist, but discipline remains steady. It does not run away. It endures, and in that endurance, something powerful is born, inner strength. A person without discipline sees pain as a barrier. They see it as a reason to stop. But a disciplined person sees it as a challenge, as a necessary part of growth. Whether it is physical training, mental effort, emotional healing, or spiritual practice, pain will appear. Discipline is what helps you keep going. It doesn't erase the pain, but it helps you move through it with clarity and purpose. Pain becomes a teacher. Every ache in the muscle, every moment of fatigue, every emotional struggle becomes an opportunity to grow stronger, to sharpen focus, to deepen resolve. Discipline turns pain from an enemy into an ally. Training in any form requires repetition. It requires patience. When a martial artist trains, they repeat the same movements thousands of times. Their muscles burn, their breath shortens, their mind wants to quit. But they don't stop. They keep going. They understand that through this repetition, through this discomfort, they are building mastery. The pain they feel is temporary, but the strength they gain is permanent. This is the core truth discipline teaches. Short-term pain leads to long-term power. When you accept this truth, pain loses its control over you. You don't fear it. You work with it. Discipline is not about harshness or punishment. It is about commitment. It is about choosing your higher goal over your temporary comfort. It is about doing what is right, not just what is easy. This kind of mindset allows you to rise above the noise of complaints and excuses. It helps you push forward, even when nothing around you seems to support your effort. When the world is silent, when motivation fades, discipline remains. It is the fire you build inside yourself, and this fire transforms pain. Consider a person who wakes up early every day to train even when tired. That tiredness is pain, but with discipline they rise. With discipline they move. Over time, the early mornings become a source of pride. The fatigue becomes a reminder that they are growing. The pain, instead of being an obstacle, becomes a signal of progress. In this way, discipline does not just help you endure pain. It changes your relationship to it. You stop asking how to avoid it and start asking how to use it. This transformation is not magical. It is gradual. Every day you choose discipline, you get a little stronger. Every time you push past your limits, you gain confidence. You learn that pain does not break you. Lack of commitment does. You see others give up, make excuses, delay their growth. But you stay steady. You feel the pain and you keep moving. This is power. Not brute force, but quiet, steady, unshakable power. The kind that builds resilience. The kind that lasts. There will be moments when the pain feels overwhelming, when you question your path, when the results seem far away. This is where most people stop, but this is also where discipline shows its true value. In those moments of doubt, discipline says, keep going. In those moments of fatigue, discipline says, one more step. It is not about ignoring pain. It is about facing it directly and moving anyway. Each time you do this, you gain control. You gain clarity. Pain becomes less frightening. It becomes familiar, manageable, even welcome. When you face emotional pain, discipline helps you stay centered. Instead of reacting impulsively, you reflect. Instead of running from discomfort, you sit with it. You breathe. You accept it. And in that acceptance, the pain begins to shift. You learn that feelings pass. That wounds heal. That silence and stillness have their own power. Discipline teaches you not to be ruled by emotions, but to listen to them and respond wisely. Over time, emotional pain becomes part of your growth. It refines you. It teaches compassion, patience, and depth. In the same way, discipline helps you deal with mental pain. Confusion, frustration, doubt. Instead of quitting when something is hard to understand, you study longer. You stay focused. You keep working until clarity comes. The mental sharpness you gain is not because the task was easy, but because you stayed with it despite the struggle. Your mind becomes stronger because of the discipline you applied in the face of challenge. Pain becomes the path to knowledge. There are no shortcuts to true power. Every shortcut avoids the pain that teaches discipline. But those who embrace the full journey, with all its hardship, become unshakable. They don't need to prove themselves. Their actions speak. Their presence is calm. They know their strength because they earned it through difficulty. Discipline gives you this quiet confidence, not because you never struggled, but because you struggled deeply and refused to give up. The transformation of pain into power is not a theory. It is a practice, a daily decision. Every time you say yes to effort, yes to structure, yes to discomfort, you are choosing growth. You are choosing transformation. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you can become. And pain is the test you must pass to walk that bridge. If you avoid it, you stay where you are. If you face it, you rise. So the next time you feel pain, ask yourself, what can this teach me? Where is the lesson hidden? How can I grow through this, not run from it? These questions are the beginning of wisdom. And with discipline, the answers will come. They will come through experience, through effort, through consistent action. And over time, you will look back and see that the pain you once feared became the very reason for your strength. That is the power of discipline. That is the path to transformation. Balance pleasure with presence, not addiction, means learning to enjoy life without becoming dependent on the things that bring you joy. Most people fall into the trap of chasing pleasure endlessly. They eat not because they are hungry, but because they crave taste. They scroll not because they are curious, but because they want distraction. They seek validation not because they lack worth, but because they are addicted to attention. Pleasure becomes their master, and they become its servant. But when you learn to balance pleasure with presence, you begin to experience life with awareness and intention. You no longer consume pleasure blindly. You enjoy it fully, then let it go. Presence is the key to this transformation. When you are present, you feel everything more deeply, but you also need less. A single sip of tea becomes meaningful. A moment of silence becomes rich. You are not rushing to the next high. You are not grasping for more. You are simply here, and that is enough. Pleasure experienced in presence is fulfilling. Pleasure chased without presence becomes addiction. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. One path leads to peace. The other leads to restlessness. Addiction is not just about substances or harmful behaviors. It is a pattern of needing more and more to feel less and less. The first time you experience a certain pleasure, it is intense. The second time, it is familiar. The third time, it may feel dull. So you seek more, a bigger dose, a stronger version, a deeper escape. But no matter how much you consume, it never truly satisfies you. That's because the problem isn't the lack of pleasure. It's the absence of presence. When you are not fully here, nothing can fill the void. You become a seeker without rest, constantly grasping but never arriving. When you bring awareness into the moment, even small pleasures become profound. You learn to listen to music without distraction. You taste food slowly. You connect with others more deeply. You find joy in stillness. This shift doesn't take away your enjoyment. It enhances it. It makes every experience richer because you are no longer divided. Your mind is not wandering. Your heart is not elsewhere. You are here, and that changes everything. Balancing pleasure with presence also means being honest with yourself. Are you enjoying something, or are you escaping through it? Are you connected to the moment, or are you numbing yourself from it? Presence requires courage. It means feeling everything, even the things you would rather avoid. But it also means gaining freedom. When you are present, you can choose. You are no longer ruled by craving. You see it arise, and you decide whether to follow it. You gain space between impulse and action. In that space, there is power. To cultivate presence, start with simple practices. Breathe deeply before eating. Put your phone away when talking to someone. Sit in silence for a few minutes each day. Watch your thoughts without judgment. These small actions bring you back to now. They train your mind to stay instead of escape. Over time, presence becomes your natural state. And from this state, you can enjoy pleasure without being consumed by it. There is nothing wrong with pleasure. It is a part of life. It is a gift. But when pleasure becomes your only source of happiness, you are vulnerable. You become like a leaf in the wind, blown by every craving, shaken by every loss. You are never satisfied because satisfaction doesn't come from the outside. It comes from being deeply connected to what is happening right now. That connection is what gives life depth. It is what allows you to feel fully without being controlled. Pleasure balanced with presence creates harmony. You can enjoy a celebration, then return to stillness. You can laugh, then sit quietly. You are not swinging between extremes. You are centered. You are grounded. And because of that, you are free. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the ability to not be ruled by desire. It is the ability to choose with clarity, not compulsion. Addiction begins where presence ends. When you stop being aware, your habits take over. You find yourself repeating the same patterns, not because they serve you, but because they are familiar. Presence interrupts this cycle. It brings light to the darkness. It makes you question, why am I doing this? What am I truly seeking? Most often, you will find that behind every addiction is a longing to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel whole. But no external pleasure can fill this longing. Only presence can. Because presence reconnects you to yourself. It reminds you that you are already whole. When you are present, you learn to say no. Not because you are depriving yourself, but because you are choosing what nourishes you. You no longer reach for pleasure automatically. You pause. You reflect. You choose. This makes your life intentional. It makes your actions meaningful. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are awake. Pain and pleasure are part of the same cycle. When you chase too much pleasure, you often find pain waiting at the end. A hangover after the high, emptiness after the indulgence. But when you approach pleasure with awareness, that cycle breaks. You enjoy without clinging. You experience without addiction. You move through life with balance. And this balance is the foundation of peace. Training in this way is a lifelong practice. You may fall into old habits. You may lose presence. But each time you return, you grow stronger. You learn that presence is not a destination, but a way of living. It is the way of the warrior, the monk, the master. It is the way of those who seek depth over distraction, meaning over stimulation. You don't need to give up pleasure. You need to give up the illusion that pleasure alone will fulfill you. Real joy comes from presence, from being fully here, from seeing clearly. And in that clarity, you begin to understand that everything you truly need is already available. It is not hidden in the next moment, the next thrill, or the next escape. It is here, now, waiting for you to notice. So live with awareness. Enjoy with presence. Choose with clarity. Let pleasure serve you, not enslave you. Let presence be your guide. And through this, you will find a life that is rich, full, and deeply free.